The Guns on Pegs podcast is brought to you by ITAP Group. Hello, and welcome to the Guns on Pegs podcast with me, George Brown.
And me, Chris Horn. How are you, George?
Yeah, not bad. You've been on holiday.
It's a rare occurrence, isn't it?
I know you've been on lots of holidays.
No, I went on two, having not really done one in a year. I went skiing, and then to be honest, skiing is my favourite thing in the world, so I had to do that, and haven't done it since the children arrived and COVID. So feels very odd. But then the other day, I went down to Devon with the family, and it was one of those weird moments where I was driving down the M5, and I said to my wife, "I've never driven down here not for shooting."
And were you sort of in a country house hotel sort of thing?
We just rented a lovely house on the coast. My auntie and uncle have a wonderful restaurant in Salcombe called the Crab Shed. There's a plug for them. They've got a crab factory there, and so we went down for my wife's birthday, had lunch there, and stayed down for the week with the family. Great fun.
Very nice. Yeah, lovely.
What have you been up to?
What have I been up to since we last did one of these? Well, so over the Easter weekend, I had my first proper fishing session of the year. I booked out the Winchester College water, which is only available to current pupils and former pupils. It's the cheapest chalk stream fishing in the world. So I booked all.
It's not though, is it? It's actually potentially the most expensive.
Well,
chalk stream
yeah, but
fishing.
I didn't have to pay. So yes, it's 5 miles of water. I booked all 4 rods. There were about 20 of us down there. Had a big lunch, caught some fish. Former podcast guest Matt Kidd joined us. He's a very, very good fisherman, and put the rest of us to shame.
Is there a catch limit?
No. We did. We set ourselves, or I set the rest of the team, a fairly ambitious target, because when they send out the dates for the season, when you can fish, when the weed cuts are, they also include last year's catch records. 21 fish caught in the whole of April last year. So I said, come on, guys, we can definitely beat that. We can catch 21 fish today. Anyway, we caught 7, which we made a pretty decent dent in it. But yeah, it was a really lovely day. It was really warm. The fish were pretty spooky, but we had a very nice time.
Good.
And I've got a lovely photo that Matt took of. He was standing on the bridge, and in the morning I was fishing down with my 5-year-old son, and he's got a photo of us sort of in the mid-ground of the picture, so to speak, and we're just kind of fishing away. Otis standing next to me. It's a really beautiful picture. So it was worth it just for that photo alone. But then in the afternoon, I had both kids with me, and I have to say, having 2 5-year-olds with you is not conducive to catching spooky trout. But we did manage to hook a fish together, Otis and I. He was holding the rod whilst I cast it, and then we played the fish together, landed it together, and I've got a beautiful picture that my wife took of Otis grinning ear to ear. You've never seen a boy with a bigger smile. And he's definitely got the fisherman's gene, because 24 hours later he was telling everybody that he'd caught 4 fish, when in fact he'd only caught 1, and the size of the fish had grown by 400% when he separated his hands to show how big it is. So the fisherman gene is strong.
Oh, very good. Well, I mean, those are those sporting memories, aren't they?
Yeah,
that you never forget.
it was magical. It was phenomenal. And of course, his sister's very upset that she didn't catch one. So it's really sad, but I'm going to have to go again.
That's like that scenario we were talking about, where you buy the dog a shoot day for its birthday.
Yeah, exactly.
Any excuse.
Yes. So yeah, it's been lovely. Anyway, enough about that. You should probably introduce our guest.
Absolutely. Our guest today has worked in the gun trade since he was 15 years old, which means he's got a lot of experience, which we'll come on to shortly. He started as an apprentice at Atkin Grant and Lang before moving on to Wesley Richards and later to James Purdy and Sons. He now owns and manages his own gun-making company, IS Sweetman, doing finishing, rifle making, repairs, as well as bespoke new builds and restorations. More recently, alongside his wife Rachel, he's developed a really interesting app called Stile app, which is a social media network for the countryside community. So we're also going to ask a bit about that. But in the meantime, put down the turn screw, step away from the vice, and please put your hands together to give a very warm welcome to Ian Sweetman.
Good afternoon, guys. Hi.
Very good to have you with us, Ian.
You're in the workshop, which is a really awesome background for this sort of podcast. And I think you've already showed us that the microphone is put in the vise on the workshop bench,
Yeah.
which is awesome. What are you working on at the moment?
So at the moment, really, it's new rifles. So we really focusing on new rifles. We took a sort of bit of a change and saw that was the area that there's the least amount of people that were good at. So we're doing that currently in the vice. I've got a 3006 and a 416 coming into finishing. And they are, yes, as always, under the hammer a little bit to get them done because they're coming up to the end. But that's part of the fun.
And they all bespoke this
Yes.
sort of thing. You just literally do custom orders. You don't have a sort of a standardized rifle that you make adjustments to. That
No, we
how does
only
it?
we only really do custom builds. We do have a selection of guns that are maybe sort of half built that we can use to reduce lead times for clients, but for the most part, everything's built to customer specification.
It's a mad world, isn't it? Rifles and shotguns generally, just men's jewelry, as far as I'm concerned. Obviously, women's as well, but I mean, like as a sort of percentage share of it, and especially your end of it.
While you were showing us your microphone setup, I was thinking, do you know what I'd really love is a microphone boom arm with shotgun style engraving on it. I'd like a
Yeah,
You mean the
custom,
most
pretty
expensive?
jazzy.
yeah, the most expensive podcasting setup ever.
If you went to each of the manufacturers and you said, "Look, I just want one small little bit from you," and you put them all together
Yeah.
so that it was a sort of a 6-piece made.
That would be very good. So yes, a man can dream.
Yeah, and you can ask as well, of course.
Well, yeah. I'm going to think about that.
We tried doing something for the Gunmakers Evening for a charity
Mhm.
many years ago when we used to own the Gunmakers Evening before we passed it on to the Game Fair. And we wanted to get each of the manufacturers to do a special engraving of a particular piece, which we would then send round.
Mhm.
I mean, obviously a logistical nightmare, and making it so that it actually works. But it would just be a sort of one-off piece that's never, you'd rarely find a piece of anything worked on by so
Mhm.
many different brands. So
Yeah.
it would be a bit of a collector's item to have, and wanted to then auction it off for charity.
Mhm.
But I couldn't quite get it to happen logistically. But it would have
It's
been one of those things where
it's
just
very difficult to get gun making firms to work together.
yeah,
Each one is so very busy, and trying to line everything up in a row is challenging. I mean, an interesting point. I'm kind of working. One of the guns actually working on at the moment is a 416 that I'm doing for the Worship Company of Gunmakers, the charitable
yeah,
trust,
yeah.
and that's going to be quite a rarity, and that's been through my workshops. It's been through Purdy's. It's been through Rigby. The gun is a Rigby, so that's a really cool project. And again, all the proceeds for it are going to go back into the charity. So that's
Oh,
yeah, so
wow.
that's
That's
So
super
very
someone
cool.
cool.
has actually got a gun to go through multiple different workshops,
Yes,
but it's still
yeah. So it
labeled as
was.
a Rigby.
Yes, so you might know it's you might know the man responsible for a lot of it, Mister James Horn.
Never heard of him.
I,
um,
I thought I'd heard something loosely, but you know what? I don't really know anything about this. We don't really talk enough. But yeah. Uh, okay, so maybe he just stole my idea, actually.
Maybe I'd have a word with him if I were you.
Are you looking for your
um,
commission, Chris? Is that what's going on here?
no, not really. I just want to have a go with it. Oh, that's quite fun. So, are you the last one on it?
Yeah, so it'll be because I'm finishing the gun. I'm on it now, and then it's going to have to go to be engraved. It's basically it's the gun's being built by past winners of the Macmillan Award for gun making. So the idea is it's the people that were deemed to be sort of worthy of winning that award when they did their apprenticeship pieces, all coming together, no matter what firm they're working at now, and building this gun. So at the moment, I'm preparing it for engraving. It's then going to go back to Rigby. It's going to be engraved there by Sire, who's a fantastic engraver. I can't remember what year she won the award in, but it was probably 2 or 3 years ago now. And then the gun will come back here, to be engraved, to be finished after engraving, and when it comes back, we'll do like the color hardening and blacking and wood finishing and stuff like that.
What do you expect this gun to go for?
Who knows? I mean,
what do you think it should go for?
I mean, I think it should go for a lot of money, personally, especially because it's for charity.
Yeah.
So it's difficult to say. I mean, what value do you put on the fact that everyone that's touched a gun is the best at what they do? That to me has got to have
It's its
a
story,
value in
isn't it?
itself.
This is where all the value
Yeah.
is.
Yeah, and who's got a gun that was actioned? It's a Mayfair engineering action, so beautiful action built in the UK. The gun was actioned in my workshop here. It was then stocked in Purdy's workshop. It's going to be engraved in Rigby's workshop. So who's got that? That's a real, for me, as far as I'm aware, is a real one-off at this point.
Yeah.
So that to me must have a value that comes with it as
Proper
well.
collector's
This is
item.
it's going to get all the PR, isn't it? And then
I'd
it should
hope
get
so.
all the collectors coming out and just almost sort of,
Yeah,
for want of a better phrase, willy waving
Yeah.
to try and claim this one.
yeah, exactly that. Exactly that. So yeah, it's I hope it does well, and I'm sure it will. I don't know. I couldn't put a number on it. I just don't know. It's when you ultimately, when you're dealing with stuff that we deal with, which is all one-off and bespoke, it's worth what someone's willing to pay for it.
Yeah.
And
Gosh.
I think you could say the same as anything, that if there's not one the same, how do you value it? It's worth what whoever's in the room is willing to.
And so do you know how people it'll be auctioned off? Presumably, will it?
I believe it would be auctioned off, unless maybe there may be clients that
could
are
do
already interested. Who knows? I don't know. It's not.
You could do sealed bids, couldn't you?
Sealed bids. Yeah. I mean, I know the trust does have I've lost the word now. The sort of the trustees that do look after the charity side of it, and they've got obviously their connections within people that kindly donate to the charity. So
I think it's got to be auctioned and create that sort of auction effect at the end, where you suddenly get two people who really want it, and you end up with $100,000 more than you thought you would.
Yeah.
That's the goal, and and the money is so fantastically well spent because it all goes back into apprentices. So any money made from it's going to go into bursaries, which then will help out companies to bring on their apprentices and help out people like me pass the knowledge on to the next lot of guys or girls coming up behind me.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Well, if you are a Guns on Pegs podcast listener and you like the sound of this gun and you'd like to buy it, drop us an email to pod@gunsonpegs.com and we will make sure that email gets to that. What was the name of that bloke you mentioned earlier? I've never heard of him before. We'll pass it on to the people who need to know.
Yeah. I mean, I can't wait to see this. I need to ask some questions, so I shall be on the phone after this.
Yeah.
Very good. Well, for people who listen to this podcast, just to confirm, this is the end of the day, and Ian is in his workshop. So if you do have a gun in build with Ian, don't worry, because we have this episode in this podcast called "What's That You're Drinking," and Ian, maybe you could share with us what you've got.
So it's a really, really boring drink, but it's got some significance to me. So for me, it's the drink that actually gives me the most sort of memories of shooting is just plain black coffee. And for me, it reminds me of what is like the most peaceful time in my shooting, which is up in a high seat, pitch black, watching deer through the thermal, waiting for the sun to come up, and just taking it all in. And that to me is so that's the drink that gives me the fondest memories of shooting.
Lovely.
That's lovely.
Out of a thermos.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah, and it just I don't think there's any sort of beat in it. I mean, I like all manner of shooting, but for me, there's nothing better than being up in the dark before the world started and just watching the animals come to life in the mornings. And
those times of day are priceless, aren't they?
Yeah.
Is it the solitude that you love as well? That moment of peace and being by yourself,
I think it's the world we're in now is we run at such a pace. We're forever, if you're not working, your phone's going off, you've got emails coming through, you've got WhatsApp coming through, for like you guys are saying, you've got kids screaming in your ear half the time. So to have that window where there's just no option but to just be there and concentrate on something as simple as just watching, listening, taking it in, and that has to take your sole focus. And I think that to me is just a lovely, lovely thing.
I couldn't agree more. And one of the previous guests on the podcast, Patrick Galbraith, who used to edit Shooting Times, he messages me about 3 times a week with this saying that he's developed, where he sends a picture of out in the high seat or on a stalk, like first thing in the morning, and he just puts the caption as every time as "at the coalface."
Brilliant.
This is his way of just saying, "I'm at the coalface of all the busy stuff. None of you and your important jobs or anything. This is where it's really at." And you get these mega pictures of scenery and just the world going by. And yeah, I mean, if you can fit it into your life regularly, it's just an absolute dream.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Speaking of
mean,
Patrick, by the way, I've just finished listening to his new book, which came out the other day.
Is it out on audiobook as
It's
well?
out on
I had it
audiobook.
arrive at the weekend.
Yep.
Do
Very, very good book. Highly recommended.
you want to give everyone the title?
It's called Uncommon Ground. And it's
about
right to
Britain's...
roam and access and all that sort of thing.
So speaking privately, slightly, but
On a
in our
podcast.
side of on a podcast, but I'm saying privately on our side of the sort of debate of this one. He's had that right to roam lot go. I mean, he's basically exposed them for what that sort of thing is, and they're up in arms about the debate. And he's hit the nail on the head, which is, as we know, there's a lot of prejudice in that argument, and not to do with conservation and nature and wildlife. And he's kind of exposing it for what it is. So I really encourage people to give it a read and get behind this, because this debate about land access is only getting bigger and bigger.
Yeah. Sorry, hijacked your drink a bit there, Ian, with book recommendations. Brief book club moment. But I mean, yes, those times in the morning are just tremendous, aren't they? I mean, I think people probably get an element of that if they're out walking their dogs early, but there's something very different about just sitting as well, which I might have said this on the podcast before. My dad always says you don't have to go and find nature. If you sit still and sit quietly, nature comes to you.
Yeah, that's good.
And that it's just so lovely with the world coming to life, the light, that's sun rising and golden light streaming through the trees.
Yeah,
tremendous.
I was watching an owl last time I was out. There was an owl hunting in the sort of the field just in front of me, which again you don't see, but just to be able to sit there and watch it's quite something.
Just on this point, sorry, we're labouring it slightly, but I'm not quite the same, but similar. I had the children for the weekend. My wife was on a hen do, which was lovely for her. And they were having a bit of a meltdown. I took them out to the bluebell wood, and the bluebells are absolutely out in force at the moment. It's looking absolutely beautiful, and there's just a carpet of blue. And we went out there and just sat on a log, took their snacks, and the dog was with us and stuff. And they just changed entirely. They absolutely loved it. They became calm, mellow, like they just were really happy. You could tell. And it's amazing what just being out in that nature, like there was no screens about, there's absolutely nothing. It was just so enjoyable to see them enjoy it. And I really did. I felt my whole self relax. And it's exactly that. I mean, it's almost like, prescribing stalking on the NHS.
That'd be good.
Well, social prescribing. Yeah.
Yeah. It's exactly that.
Chris, what have you got?
George, what do you drink? Okay. I'll go first. I have a handcrafted Pilsner from the Cold Bath Brewing Company in Harrogate.
Wow.
I don't really know them, and it tastes nice. That's it.
It sounds tremendous.
It's worth it. I find that generally Pilsners and lagers of sorts, I don't really notice some huge differences until you get a really bad one like a Carling. So I find that this is just nice. Whereas with like a pale ale or an ale, you get such extreme differences. But yeah, it's recommended. Enjoy it. I'd never heard of Cold Bath Brewing Company in Harrogate before. I'm sure lots of our listeners have. So there you go.
It sounds really nice. Where did you get it from?
Absolutely no idea, George. It's one of those ones that's
another one of your cupboard
finds.
finds.
I bought it for an occasion. I probably bought it for this, and then just can't remember when I bought it.
Very good.
What are you on?
Well, I'm on a gin and tonic. It's beautiful and sunny here in Hampshire, and it has been for the last few days. So I'm very much in sort of summer drinks mode now. And it is the same gin as I've had on previous podcast episodes, which is Newmarket gin. I couldn't tell you anything very much about it. There's so many craft gins around that I think they're all
Go on, try and describe it. Make
Well, I
yourself look
think
silly.
the most notable thing is there's a sort of pepperiness to it, a bit of black pepper, which I
very good.
like, and it goes very well with the slice of orange that I like to have in my gin and tonics.
Yeah.
So it's got plenty of ice. It's in my what's that you're drinking glass, which is I always enjoy having the opportunity to get that out. Yeah, it's slipping down very nicely, and it'll set my evening up nicely too. Right, so the next segment in is one that we call Whose Bird Is It Anyway? We turn to the post bag and we ask our listeners to send in their shooting quandaries and queries and dilemmas, and we do our best to help them out. But I don't think this one that I'm about to read out quite qualifies as a Whose Bird Is It Anyway? It's more of a cautionary tale, but I'm very interested to get your specific take on it. It's come from somebody who I've decided to call Forks, and he has written, I write to you today with a quandary that thankfully didn't have the sinister end it could have had. I received an invite from a good friend of mine to go out and look for a spring roebuck in the valleys below the North York moors. The date set, my kit was ready many days in advance and the anticipation built. However, months before, I'd agreed that one of the lads who works for me could borrow my truck to go to a wedding. He needed 4 seats, and he only drove one of the work vans, which was only a 2-seater. Anyway, I forgot. I turned up at work with all my gear in the truck to do a day's graft and then sneak off an hour early to make the drive from South Yorkshire to the North York moors, only to then be reminded of my promise I'd made months before. No problem, the moor was more than accessible in a van, so I loaded all my gear into my plasterer's tray that I used to put carcasses in and loaded it into said van. The journey up was traffic and hassle free. We met at our usual spot and split up to stalk to a high seat at either end of the valley. Not a deer was seen, but once in the high seat, I was treated to a wonderful sunset, to a symphony of grouse cackling and the odd shriek of a curlew in the distance. Wonderful. Back at the van, we said our goodbyes and I headed home. As I came down Sutton Bank, for those who don't know, it's a steep incline with little light, I thought, these headlights are shit in this van. I pulled up to find all of the lights had gone on the passenger side. I rummaged through all the compartments looking for bulbs. Alas, none to be found, so I thought I'd move on to the next services on the motorway. I'd just reached the A1 when I was flashed by a lorry parallel to me. Assuming I'd unknowingly cut him up, I flashed back in apology. Then the strangest thing happened. 3 lorries were behind me, 3 abreast, all flashing their lights. So I thought, yikes. And in fact, I've edited that. He used a different word. I must have something hanging off my van as I looked confused through my near side mirror. As I scanned round back to the front of my van, I could see why they were flashing me. My near side headlight was raging in flames. I quickly pulled onto the hard shoulder and rang the regular driver of the vehicle to see if there was a fire extinguisher in the van. No, he said. I quickly rang 999 whilst dragging all my kit out of the back. Fire brigade called, I stood back 100 yards, and within 3 minutes the van was engulfed in an inferno. Credit to the operator and the fire brigade who swiftly sorted the matter. All aside, I'm safe, but what if? What if the fire was so aggressive I'd had no time to get the gear and ammo out? I'd like to think I'm right in saying that we're all guilty of leaving or forgetting the odd box of cartridges in our regular shooting trucks. The brace of 50-gram AA's in the center console for the unknowing fox. Mine would have had a box of 410 and 28 gauge cartridges. Can you imagine the extra hassle it would have caused for the fire brigade if there'd been a box of rifle ammo in the truck that night? Surely, if that was in the fire, they would have had to completely shut the whole area down. Should we be doing more to be safe travelling with rounds? All I know is a bare minimum, regardless of vehicle and purpose, please carry a travel fire extinguisher, as I truly believe I'd put this fire out if I'd had one to hand.
Goodness.
That's unfortunate.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
But I mean,
he didn't notice the flames. I suppose I can imagine how that slightly could occur.
but the reason I want to get your take on it, Ian, is you will obviously have lots of this sort of thing kicking about as an RFD and all that kind of thing. So, fire and ammunition.
So obviously fire ammunition don't mix overly well. it's not ideal. It will never happen as people expect. Like, the rounds will go off, but being unchambered, they won't launch a projectile. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
there will be a lot of people think, oh, with rifle ammunition, especially, people think, oh, it might shoot the bullet out. It's not going to. However, it's still not a good situation, and not one that you want to kind of be in. Yeah, I mean, I know everyone does that thing where it's like a magazine full got left somewhere in a case or in the back of a truck or wherever it is. But I mean, personally, I like the belt and braces, so I'll tend to have, if I'm out stalking, I'll tend to have trousers with the big leg cargo pockets. I tend to go rifle in the back, bolt and ammo in my trousers. That way, if I need to go, especially if you're driving, if you need to nip into the services for a wee or do whatever you need to do, you've got the bolt and your ammunition separate to your rifle all the time. To me, that's a sensible way of doing it. But
Yeah.
I do know that people can be a
Yeah.
little bit haphazard with it.
I've seen, when I was younger, some idiot, when we were at some sort of bonfire night, was chucking shotgun cartridges onto the fire.
Blimey.
And so I saw what happened, and it was nothing like I'd expect. I mean, he'd obviously done it before, and so that's why he did it, I assume. And to be honest, in this instance, your much bigger issue is your fuel tank, which is gonna make a hell of a lot more mess than if even a whole box of cartridges,
Yeah.
or even a slab of ammo, because they go off with a whistle, and they come out the side of the fire a bit, but I mean, they wouldn't come out of the back of a van.
No.
So yeah, it's not really. I mean, and if your car pulls up in flames and you're on the motorway, you're not going to be rummaging through the boot trying to get your ammo out. Like, you're just going to run away, aren't you?
How many times have you got to the airport in your shooting coat and gone, oh Christ, there's a shotgun cartridge in there?
That's not happened to me. It happened to my cousin and my brother-in-law. My brother-in-law had a tricky one. The sniffer dogs pulled him up for it being on his hands. He went straight from shooting to go and get a flight.
Wow.
And the sniffer dogs went mental, and it really caused him all sorts of trouble.
Yeah, I'll bet.
I think he missed his flight.
You have that's one where we're always overly cautious when we travel, to make sure, even if it's personal, we still make sure to take our licenses and RFDs with us, because GSR, gunshot residue, it stays on you for a while. So if you've pulled the trigger and then the dog has a little sniff as you walk past, it's not ideal.
Yeah, he didn't have a license with him or anything, so it's only your word, which is basically useless.
Yeah. It is something that I don't think I've ever arrived at the airport, but I've definitely sort of, I check my pockets before I get in the car, when I get out of the car, before I walk into the terminal, before I get, I'm just like, maybe there's just one there that I failed to find the first 5 times I checked. It's sort of a paranoia I have.
I do have a colleague who is going to remain nameless that took a full magazine of 22s somewhere within Europe in his luggage without realizing, and only found them when he got to the hotel on the other end.
That's really worrying.
Yeah, it's a little bit worrying.
Not his part, the other part. Like, I thought that was the whole reason that we stripped naked.
Obviously, well, they were in the hold, so obviously the bag didn't get checked, and I think they got disposed of somewhere in there to make sure they didn't make the trip turn back. But yeah, it's
goodness
yeah,
me.
you can get caught short pretty easily.
I'm still surprised that stuff made it into the hold.
I think it all depends on what sort of flights you're on.
Yeah.
I mean, I've flown through a lot of different airports, and particularly, I remember I've been flown from Egypt, where we walked up to the plane and walked onto the plane without as much as having a passport looked at. So it just depends what sort of airport, where you are in the world. We are obviously this side, we're very strict, but
well, George, you're absolutely right. That was a cautionary tale, and I like how you named him Forks.
Yes.
Even I got that one.
Yeah.
It is a bit of a lesson, and I think it's only right that he gets a pair of garters for his hot pants moment.
Correct. Yeah, I agree.
It must be really awful just standing on the side of the A1 watching your car go up in flames.
Yeah.
So we've got a proper Whose Bird Is It Anyway, which comes from not one but 2 people, Wilbur and Orville, who say, "Dear George and Chris, My brother and I have had an incredibly exciting invitation to a GWCT charity day on the 1st of September in Wales. This isn't a standard charity day. It's not charity clay day. This is a game day, right?
Yeah.
As you can imagine, this is an absolute dream come true. We're emailing you today as we'd very much like your help and advice with the etiquette of such an occasion. At aged 11 and 9, we have limited experience. Very good of them to message in. We both beat regularly, and I'm currently training our lab pup to work her next season. I've had the privilege to shoot at local syndicates, and our grandfather runs a syndicate on the Surrey-Sussex border for which I'm an apprentice underkeeper. My favourite pre-shoot day preparation is making pheasant goujons for 11s. Good lad.
Top tier.
Our questions to you today are, how do we tip the keeper since we're obviously children on a charity day? Do we take a gift, perhaps a bottle of something nice, Ribena in brackets, open to other suggestions? If it wasn't Grandad loading for us, what would be an appropriate loading tip? Is there anything else we need to know of or be aware of? We have our outfits planned already, but we think they'd be massively enhanced by a pair of pink garters. Well done for you two on that part. Right, let's tackle this. A 9 and 11-year-old, gosh, wind your memories back. That's a daunting moment, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, it sounds like they've done a bit of shooting already, so that's good.
Yeah, they've grown up with it a bit, and being an underkeeper as well. That's a great place to be able to understand how the whole thing's going to work.
So we've tackled the tipping question before. What's the right amount to tip?
Yeah,
but tipping for kids is a different kettle of scaly swimming things, isn't it?
It's a tough one.
I think the question is, how much can you get out of mum and dad before the day?
Okay, let's put ourselves in the keeper's shoes. If a 9 or 11-year-old came up to me with like 40 quid, let's say, in his hand and shook my hand, I just couldn't accept it. So I'd hand it back and say, look, go and buy yourself something nice or whatever, like to commemorate the day. That's me. I don't know how, as a older chap, you could accept that. What do you guys think about that point there?
I'd firmly agree. I think it's the same. It's not the same, but we do get tipped here by clients quite regularly. And if it was a child, you wouldn't. I don't know. It wouldn't sit easy with me taking tips off, especially such a younger child, like a 9 or 11-year-old child. But the point they made of actually taking a gift, I've always find that actually sometimes a gesture is worth a lot more, especially if it's quite well thought out.
Yeah.
So if it were me, that's what I would say to them. I would say, the gift is the gift. The gift would always be well received, especially if it was a well thought out gift.
And look, they've said already like how this is an absolute dream come true. So that keeper, or who would otherwise be tipped, is knowing that with a gift, this gesture, that he has helped make their dream come true. That's quite a lovely feeling. And if they've got a little gift and a little way of commemorating that, that keeper's going to love that. That's why they're in this role as well.
So, and also, I think a thank you note with a gift goes an awful long way. I think that in of itself would be really good.
Can I upgrade this? Go on, George, you go first.
No, you do your upgrade, and then I'm going to ask you a pointed question.
Okay. I've got the actual solution, right? Which is do the gift, think about your gift, and do something that means something to each of these two young lads. Go to Dad and say, Dad, on the podcast, they said you should tip on our behalf. Then the keeper accepts the tip because it's from the dad, and the lads win because they don't have to do the tip.
Okay, so my pointed question is: at what point, how old you, with your imaginary keeper's hat on, how old does the kid have to be before you accept the tip?
16, 18?
When the kid's paying for the day.
Okay. And follow-up question. At some point, you've got to learn how to do the funny handshake. So, and it takes a lot of practice. So when do you start?
Such a stupid thing, isn't it? Especially with inflation in this day and age, you can't even get your hand around the wad and some of these.
So, but all joking aside, I think I would encourage these guys to, even if the money comes from Dad in the first place, to be the one to shake hands and say thank you.
I think that the keeper needs to see that thing occur. Here, lad, give this to him,
Yeah.
and then it can be accepted because it was very much from dad. Because otherwise, he would just be feel too awkward. And I think it's actually unfair to put the keeper in that position of trying to
Mm.
accept, 40 quid from a 9-year-old.
I
Like, it's
mean,
just,
on a slightly different note, I do remember this, but it was more my dad. So when I started beating at a similar sort of age, and my dad would give £3 to the keeper, and he would give me that as my pay for the day, because obviously I wasn't going to get paid for the day because I was so young.
smart.
And
Yeah.
I think that was, it was like my dad was trying to teach me the lesson of, you get you get some money for grafting being here, but and I actually got it, and I actually have really fond memories of that. So I think there's always a little workaround with something like that.
Yeah. It's a tough question, that, though, George. At what age is tipping, like, the done thing? Like, what are you really expected to tip?
Yeah.
But I think probably throughout, but with the caveat we've just given. And therefore, the question becomes: at what age do you feel the relationship between you and the parent becomes then that the parent says, "No, no, lad, or daughter, this is your shout."
Yeah. Yes. Depends how lucrative the paper round is, doesn't it?
It does a bit,
Yeah.
but the parent knows that, so they're making the decision, aren't they?
Yeah. Would you be tipping Grandad for loading?
Granddad deserves a bottle of whiskey or something, doesn't he?
Yeah, I think so.
And again, going back to your point, Granddad would much prefer a bottle of whiskey from 9 or 11-year-old
Than a
Wilbur
sticky
Orville.
fiver.
Exactly.
The next question is there anything else we need to know or be aware of? So this is general shoot day etiquette tips, I think.
I mean, God, sorry, I've got to go. This is like if you if you cannot see sky behind it, or if you are in any way, shape, or form hesitating, just don't bother pulling the trigger. And that means, is it your neighbor's bird or is it safe? If you even hesitate, don't bother. The biggest reason is safety. The second biggest reason, quite close behind it, is you're going to miss it anyway.
Yeah.
uh, so just don't bother. And no one ever goes, "Oh my God, you're such an awful person. Why did you leave that?" No.
Yeah. I think I mean, they've obviously done a bit of shooting on the family syndicate or the syndicate that they go to regularly. There's a big difference between shooting somewhere where you know the ground and shooting somewhere new. So I would say uh, fieldcraft is. I mean, talking about fieldcraft and driven shooting sometimes makes people snigger a bit, but I do think there's something to be said for having a word with the host or the keeper at the start of each drive just to understand where they're bringing the birds from, what direction to expect. I mean, I've got onto pegs before and thought, well, I don't actually know which wood I'm supposed to be
Yeah.
facing. So that can help, facing the right direction. But also, you know, thinking about the wind, thinking about where the birds are coming from in respect to that wind, the kind of angles that you can expect them on, that kind of thing can just make you feel that much more prepared. And if it is a charity day, there's likely to be a bunch of people who you don't know. You might be feeling nervous. It's obviously going to be a big occasion anyway. So, forewarned is forearmed, and being prepared is never a bad idea.
No, just I think that's really good, and just to add on that, something that's reminded me of a lot of time when me and Rach shoot. So she always has this thing where just like a little tiny plan. So when you get onto the peg, have a little look around and just take that minute while everyone's getting their guns out, while everyone's getting their cartridge ready. Just have a look around and say, right, anything that comes over between that bush and that tree is cool.
You're
Anything out of
absolutely right.
that, and then it always takes away that pressure of having to go, as you say, don't pull the trigger. But when you raise that gun, going, is that bird? Is it not? If it's not within that thing, then that's that.
You're absolutely right with that bit of advice, because in the split second moment, you know whether you can pull the trigger or not. And if you're overthinking something, as I said, like it's game over, and it'll make you feel rubbish on the peg if you're missing everything because you're overthinking it. You want to enjoy it and you want to shoot well. Everyone likes to shoot well, and you don't want to be wounding. So yeah, taking stock of what the situation is when you get there is also a cracking bit of advice.
Yeah. I think, the other bit is just enjoy yourselves. It's going to be a great day. It'll be incredibly exciting. You'll have your granddad there who will be able to keep you on the straight and narrow. Talk to all the other guns. You'll definitely learn from them. Talk to the beaters, talk to the keeper. just absolutely fill your boots and make the most of it.
Yeah. Grandad's not going to be short of a bit of advice, is he? Why don't you get on the start of the first peg and go, Grandad, I'm sure you've been here before. What would you do if you're in my position? He'd be made to feel amazing.
Yeah.
And he wouldn't stop until the end of the drive.
Very good. Well, I really enjoyed that one. It's nice to hear from some of our younger listeners, and now maybe you know why I mildly edited the first letter. So,
true.
yeah, thank you very much for sending that in. And I think it must have been Mum who emailed it in. So, Fawkes, Wilbur, and Orville, and now you, Ian, are the newest members of the Most Noble Order of the Garters and will very soon be in receipt of a set of the much coveted Guns on Pegs podcast Shooting Sock Garters. If you too have a shooting confession, quandary, or query that you'd like us and our guests to help you with, or if you've got an unpopular opinion or a podcast selection or a forgotten drive to share and you'd like a set of garters, drop us an email to pod@gunsonpegs.com. So, Ian, I wanted to ask you, you've worked at some of the biggest names in gun making. From the point of view of their processes and the way they work, how do they differ from each other in terms of their ethos? And I know they all have their different techniques, but is there a different atmosphere in the workshop, that kind of thing?
The short answer is yes, very, very much so. So, I've just worked in the Wesley Richards factory, at the Purdy factory. I spent a week in Rigby's just learning a little bit from them and a couple of others. And yeah, they're all really, really different, but in culture as well as the work. So yeah, so
You've
the
got to be
work.
careful what you say now, don't you?
Yeah, I'm going to be a little bit. Yeah. So yeah, I'll it's something I actually do talk about very, very regularly because I'm all about culture within a business, and I'm all about people within a business because ultimately that is, to me, there's nothing more to it. Good people yield good results, and bad people yield bad results.
Yeah.
So the culture of each company, to me, is quite an interesting thing, and the conversation we have very, very regularly is company X always has their guys like this. Like, so for instance, one company that I've worked with, all their guys are just obsessed with getting better. And that to me is just fantastic. Like, they're always, oh, let's do this, let's do that. When they're working on guns, or they're talking about guns, or they're hunting, and they just like in it to their core. Whereas I've worked at other companies where it's a job. People go in, it's a job. They've got no interest in shooting, no interest in guns, no interest in anything apart from, this is a job that pays me my wage. I get in, I crack my hours out, and I leave. So the answer is yes. They're so very different, and there's two that spring to mind, but the two that I spring to mind, they have that just fantastic culture whereby their team just are so invested in their brand, and they just want the brand to succeed, be it through basically hard work, thinking outside the box, being progressive with their techniques. So yeah, they're very, very different across the board.
Really, really interesting though what you say about culture, and I mean, obviously we're in the other side of the same sort of industry, and I couldn't agree more. Having a team that fundamentally really enjoys this sort of getting out of the weekend with their mates, going shooting, and understands therefore the link between what you do on Monday to Friday versus the weekend is just a really crucial part of it. And you've then got that association with your colleagues, and as we've always noticed, like the discussion over lunch and in the pub is just the same as it would be on a shoot day, and that makes it so much more fun.
Yeah, it's very difficult though. It's very, very, staffing is I think the most difficult part of anything. And yeah, if you're a small business and you only want A players, it's challenging. It's challenging.
Oh yeah, you've got to find your niche, don't you? Yeah, you really do. That's tricky, especially if you need everyone in the office 5 days a week on a bench like you would.
At the beginning, you said that you're mainly working on rifles these days. How does building and designing a rifle differ from designing and building a shotgun? Is it very different? Is it broadly the same?
It depends who's doing it. So for me, it's probably slightly different. It would depend on the person selling. I mean, my process is the same regardless. And it all factors around getting to know a client. So if someone comes to me to build a bit, it's, I would say it's slightly more complex with a rifle because the usage is going to be very different. The chances are, if someone comes to me to build a shotgun, it's going to be for driven shooting. Whereas if someone comes to me to build a rifle, they could be using it for stalking in Scotland, they could be using it for dangerous game in Africa, they could be using it in North America, they could be using it anywhere. So for that reason, I have to delve into what they want a lot more. So what I tend to do is I start off by really just I like to just general chit chat with my clients. So I like to find out what kind of cars they like, what kind of watch, if any, they like. You know, do they, what sort of brands do they like? And then that gives me a kind of an idea of their taste in terms of the aesthetic. And then from there I can say, well, where do you want to hunt? What countries are you mainly in? You know, that helps me with calibers. You know, do you do a lot of walking when you hunt? Do you want to jump off a truck and shoot straight away? All these things actually help me paint a mental picture of the end product, because our goal, or our only goal really, is to give the client exactly what they need. And a lot of time the client doesn't know what they need.
Mm.
They know what they have a broad picture in their mind of what they want to achieve, but they might not know the nuances and actually what can be done. So we'll go through all of this. We'll just gather, get all the information, and then from there we'll use that to create a specification. And then starts the fun bit where it's like, oh, we could have this or we could have that, and then we
Mm.
get into the nitty gritty of the tastes.
How much are you steering then? Because somebody might come to you and say, like, I don't know, like for example, would you suggest a different caliber if somebody came to you and said, "I want a 243," say, and then you spoke to them for a bit, and it turned out that actually what they really wanted was what they really needed was something else? Would you try and persuade them down a different route?
Yeah, so ultimately, it's, of course, we'll build whatever we're told to build. Like, you know, if the client specifically wants, and that's what they want, that is what we'll build. But yeah, I'll always offer advice. You know, if someone comes to me and says, "Oh, I want to shoot a mainly driven bore, and I want a 308," I'll say, "Well, yeah, you can shoot them with a 308. I have shot them with a 308. However, how experienced are you? If you're smacking them in the same place every time and you don't need any neat leeway, absolutely fine. Have yourself the 308. However, if you're not as experienced, then you might want a little bit more punch to give yourself a little bit more leeway on the shot placement. Maybe hop up, maybe go 300 Win Mag, maybe go 9.3." And so we'll just give them the option. It's all about just giving them the option, because ultimately everything is bespoke, which means it's the client's choice.
Yeah.
But we will offer advice along the way as to whether
Yeah.
that's practical as well, because sometimes the client might request something that isn't practical. So we will, again, if they want it, we'll do it, but we will offer the advice and say, actually, do you know what, in this particular instance you might affect the handling of the gun by doing that particular thing.
Mm.
And how much percentage of your work is for brands as opposed to your own branded stuff?
A majority of it is for brands. Currently, look, we would like to have a more even split long term, but currently a majority of it is for brands. I like working for the brands because the orders tend to be bigger. So from a commerce point of view, it is better because we will get a chunk of rinse and repeat work. But I find the actual customer engagement is very, very
Yeah.
enjoyable. Whereas when we're working for brands, we will never meet the client.
Gosh, yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. So that I imagine that's why you ended up deciding to set up on your own. That whole shift in the way that the business could become so much more to you was attractive.
Yeah, and it's a control thing as well. You know, I mean, even when I worked at factories, I think I worked at factories for I don't know, like probably 12 years, say. I could probably count on one hand the amount of clients I met in that time, because as a bench worker, you're not there to meet clients. You're not there to get their feedback. You're there just to do the job. And I felt that I could offer people a lot more than that.
It's really interesting that though, because if I was a client spending that sort of money, I'd want to go and see the people working on my gun.
Yeah, most do, but then a lot of the time they're not afforded the option. They'll get a factory tour and they'll spin around the factory, and they won't necessarily, I'd say we'll talk to clients on a broad spectrum, like if they're coming for a factory tour, but it won't be about particularly their gun we're
It
building.
won't be a
It will just be
consultation. It'll
this is
be
this.
Yeah.
That's
I think
that's a sales team.
people. I understand the sales team, but the richness and rawness of the person doing the whatever. It doesn't matter if like they literally they speak engraving rather than actually speaking English. You know, like just I don't care. Like that's really natural, and like I think that I just think I feel like that's missing a trick.
Yeah, and that's what most of my clients here are what they actually really value, because my workshop here ultimately, it's a small workshop in Hertfordshire. It's not a big workshop in London, but what they get to do is they get to see every time the gun's being worked on. So because they're really dealing with me, even though I've got obviously other people helping me out do the builds, they might, when I see their gun on the bench, I'll take a couple of pictures of them, send it to them, and be like, right, just so you know, we're currently working through the scope mounts, we're doing X, Y, Z,
Yeah, lovely.
and it's that journey is so key to it. That's something that I find the clients absolutely love, and yeah, it makes them part. They really get to be part of their build,
Hmm.
Yeah,
um,
yeah.
and that's yeah. But yeah, we just don't seem to have it so much with the houses.
That's very interesting. I've got a really basic interviewer question for you, which
This is
is what's the weirdest gun someone's asked you to build for them? Most unusual.
I mean, it tends to be for weirdest is probably it's just the big calibers, really. I can't really get behind them. People will a lot of the time they'll want a bigger caliber and a bigger caliber and a bigger caliber. So sometimes been asked to build kind of like 600s. Never done a 700. Uh, and stuff like that. And when there's a line where I really start to dislike rifles, and it's sort of 500 and bigger, because they hurt when you pull the trigger. You really got to get hammered when you're regulating them, and just to work on as well. They're big old things. They're hard work. But I've never had any really really obscure requests. A lot of it is to do with engraving. It's not uncommon to see sort of like naked ladies engraved on the sides of guns and things like that. A
so
lot of brands
1980s.
actually won't do it. Yeah, and a lot of brands now won't do it because they'll say it doesn't really fit with their brand, which
Hmm.
is
Yeah, I
absolutely
mean
fine.
their name's got to be inside it, or they
Yeah,
just say we're not putting our name on this. But
yeah, and ultimately, I'm a big believer in that. I certainly wouldn't build guns for people if I didn't like what they were doing, because ultimately, yeah, it goes out with my name on the side of it, and if I don't want to be associated with that particular item, then it's a no go.
You've not been asked to do any sort of triple barrels or anything like that.
Not really, and I don't think that the kind of guns that we build, we're really known for ultra traditional, ultra best quality, and if you want, like, I wouldn't buy a three-barreled gun built in the UK. If I wanted one of those, I'd go to Austria because they do it best.
Hmm.
Whereas if I wanted something, if I wanted like a side by side or a stalking rifle or a double rifle, I'd go UK because that's what we do best.
Yeah, makes sense.
I once saw a trio of guns with Jurassic Park engraving.
Yeah,
You know the ones I'm talking about?
I've not seen them in the flesh. I've seen them in a book.
I
But
held
I
them.
think they were Fabries. I think they were
I
Fabries,
held
maybe.
them. They are, yeah. Uh,
Mm.
but they're for. Okay, we should probably shouldn't say. I think you can work it out who they're for. But yeah, going back to like niche engraving. I remember seeing them being like, what on earth? They're pretty cool.
So one, and I'm sure I can say this because I could just not say the company or the client was, but there was, for someone I worked for, a client ordered a set of guns, and they were a beautiful set of guns. They had everything from a 10-bore Paradox to a 2.2 Hornet, and a load of rifles in between. And the client requested that there be a Where's Wally engraved on the 2.2. Because the two what we again the story goes that the 2.2 was going to be for his grandkids to learn to shoot with, and he said, I want a Where's Wally engraved on the gun, but I don't want to know where it is. And
Oh wow.
it was engraved on the underside of the top lever, and unless you know it's there, you're not going to look on the underside of the top lever. But what a fantastic story to go with the gun.
Yeah.
And I hope that one day I hope that his grandkids did get hold of it and manage to find it.
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
that's probably one of that's you see a lot of unique engravings, but that's probably the one that that's actually been through my bench that I actually found probably the most interesting.
Am I right in saying that there's some Forrest Gump engraved guns out there as well?
I mean, I'm not sure, but quite possibly there is with engraving the quality of the engraving, the quality of the art now,
Yeah,
the sky's the limit. So whatever you want on there, you can have.
nice. It's interesting you mentioned about this big caliber stuff, because I was going to ask about where gun making's going, and I imagine that there's a bit of a link here with shotguns as well. I've certainly seen it, like heavier and bigger shotguns. Where do you see this going? I mean, obviously, we're going through a change in cartridges at the moment. These things are going to change. We're not, the cartridges we have now aren't going to be the cartridges we're going to have in the future. They're going to continually adapt. But it feels to me like this is sort of, when you look back over 100 years, they were super light and whippy and side by sides, and now they're super heavy and OU and just not very nice as far as I'm concerned compared to what they used to be. But that's my only personal taste. But what do you think about all of this? Where's it heading?
Yeah, no, I'd say exactly the same. I mean, if you look at the design of a modern side by side, for instance, to get it through superior steel proof, they just don't feel as nice. They just all that the British gun is really made to be having all that weight in between the hands. That's what gives it that real whip. Whereas as soon as you start thickening the barrels all the way down, it starts to feel like yielding a scaffold pole around. But that is, at the end of the day, if we want to continue shooting, which we all do, we're going to have to adapt and overcome when it comes to making guns suitable for modern cartridges. It's exactly the same with the rifle side of things. We do make rifles that are more than capable of producing the same accuracy with non-toxic, and we'd be fools not to, even though currently, we don't per se have to, but a lot of the states will say actually we only want non-toxic, and then obviously the time's coming. It's going to be everywhere. So yeah, so we do sometimes look at modifying twist rates to accommodate different bullets. So that's something that we do constantly consider. Especially not for the big stuff. If you're shooting 375 plus, you're not really worried about that. You're not shooting in the UK anyway. It's going to only be shot really in Africa. So that's not as much of an issue. But for the smaller calibers, anything between anything sort of 280 to sort of 300 Win Mag, we'll look at making sure those guns are capable of shooting non-toxic.
Yeah.
So that's something that's really you can't not, like, that's something that you really have to do if you want to continue building rifles.
Interesting. Shame, really, isn't it? But yeah, you're absolutely right with your point. Like, we all want it to continue. So these are one of the things that got to adapt. But hey ho.
Yeah, it's. I mean, I my personal take on it is I like shooting lead. It does what I want in shooting. But then I haven't done the research into what it does or doesn't do long term. So you've got to respect the rules and you've got to work within the rules. So when the rules change, we change with them, and that's how we stay in business, and that's how we grow.
Yeah, and Wilbur and Orville early on are not going to know any difference, so they won't care.
No,
they might have to get down the gym age 9-11 though.
Yeah. I mean, we've seen it have such a huge effect in the value of guns. That's something that I think as much as the shooting, but the actual collection of and dealing of guns has changed astronomically, and a lot of that is due to obviously changes in modern cartridges.
Yeah.
A gun that you're out, say your average nice side lock when I started nearly 20 years ago would have been, your average nice used 80-90-year-old side lock would have been £8,000, whereas that same gun today, you'd be lucky if you got 2.5. So that's had a big impact on the industry, I think, as a whole.
So if you want a nice side lock for 2 years of shooting, you've only got to pay £1,000 a season. That's quite good.
Now's the time to buy them.
Spend all the money you saved on bismuth.
Yes.
Which will let you shoot for maybe 3 days.
Yeah. But that's you say that, but it's what I say to a lot of my clients is that, bismuth, we all know it's not cheap, but neither shooting. So, everything's gone up, hasn't it? The fuel for your car's gone up, the shoots has gone up, everything's gone up. And I think, like, when you're paying, X amount for a bird, which we all know is quite strong these days, you can afford to spend the extra
I couldn't agree more
on cartridges, and if that means that you can shoot your granddad's boss rather than grabbing a Perazzi out the shelf.
Yeah, lovely.
Do it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, and also, like, if you've got to buy a Perazzi, like, how much have you got to spend, and how many years worth of ammo is that? Like,
yeah.
Right. So I want to change topic. I want to ask you about the Stile app.
Yes.
which you and your wife put together. Can you tell us the story? And well, but better start with what it is, and then the story behind.
Yeah. So Stile is a new social media app. It's got a lot of unique features. It's still very much an MVP, so we're still at a stage where it's available to download and it's you can use it, but we're very very much still in the development stage. You know, you can share. There's a lot of different parts to it, but basically what we looked at is we looked at the pain point initially. So what it was me and Rach were talking. I mean, we've got currently a 3 and a 1 year old, and at the time we had a one and that was a year ago, so it was 1 and 2. We spent a lot of time driving around in the car, so we had a lot of these what if conversations, and we would we talk about this business a lot, and we were talking about advertising, and this business really struggles on social media. Reason being, I'm not allowed to post a lot of things about guns because it gets taken down. Also, I'm not allowed to do paid ads because I'm guns, even though it's such a highly legislated industry and I have to do a lot to be able to trade in this industry. And the question was like, why has no one made an app that's rurally friendly? So friendly to guns, friendly to farming, friendly to shooting, all the things that we basically like that are almost demonized in the world of social media. And we thought, oh, if it was easy, someone, there's probably a reason why no one's done it. And then for some unknown reason, we thought, you know what, let's do it. So we sat down with a few companies, and we sort of made a plan. This was about a year ago, and then at Christmas time, we actually launched the app. So it's a social media platform. So it does a lot of what the traditional social media apps do. So you can share your photos, etc., etc. But one of the core sort of values for us is we're trying to make, this is a bit of an odd statement, but trying to make social media actually sociable. Social media now is really a case of sell you things. So you go on there and every other post is try and sell you something, try and sell you something, try and sell you something. And I think it's got a lot away from the actual community side of things. So that's what we're trying to do. It's things like if you want to find somewhere to take your dog picking up, well, it's quite difficult to do that now because with a lot of the Facebook groups, they have to be closed. Otherwise, if you put a picture of a dog holding a pheasant, it'll get taken down. So you can't find those groups. Whereas on Stile, we have sort of areas within the app for fishing, country life, dog training, etc., etc. And we're looking at it to be very much like a location-based app. So, for instance, if you want to find anyone that's obviously you can turn it on and off because you don't want people to know where you are if you're out stalking, etc., etc. But if you've got a shoot and you might want someone to come picking up or find some beaters, it will really help connect people in that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, very
Nice. So,
interesting.
so the location stuff's interesting because, as you say, community first. I mean, the segment you're catering for is a community in its own right.
Yeah.
Uh, and if you can build it around that, elements of Foursquare. Do you remember Foursquare? There
Yeah,
was the
like
app
the restaurant
Foursquare.
reviews and stuff.
It was very
Mm,
location based, wasn't it? It was all about
Yeah.
like
yeah.
you're in here. Where do you want to go for a meal and all that sort of
Yes.
stuff. Like, and it was very basically friendly for people with who really love food. And then it sort
Yeah.
of developed from there. I think it got bought by, I can't remember who bought it, but yeah, I mean, I love it. I love the concept, and I mean, obviously, a huge undertaking on your part, and trying to do anything
Yeah.
in such a sphere which requires so much activity is always going to be tough. But it starts with a really decent principle, and you've absolutely got that. And there's so many people who want to buy into that.
Yeah, that's it. And I mean, ultimately, I file bits of metal off of other bits of metal for a living. So, so to go into the tech, so to go into tech is quite a step.
How do
But
the two compare? How because making a gun is a complicated process, but as Chris and I know, making an app's quite complicated too.
yeah, so I mean, I think I've been on a bit of a journey with my gun making business. So when I started out, I had very different attitudes towards business as I do now, and I think I've learned how little I know and how unready I was to start. But we progress, and through that progression, I've learned a lot about sort of business in general, and that's actually what I think an advantage for us, me and Rachel. I mean, Rachel is really the brains behind it. She's doing the majority of the work. I'm kind of oh, I have an idea, and I'm like, oh, Rach, we should do this, and then the actual implementation of that is the actual hard work, which she's sorting out. But I would say the difference between the two is that actually it's in my gun making business, because I am a professional gun maker, I can see every little detail, every little nook and cranny, and I can get involved in every little nook and cranny. And if something's going wrong, I can firefight it myself. Now that is fantastic. However, I don't always think that's the best way to go. Sometimes, if you want to have a business that actually has scalable growth, you can look at it and go, well, I'm good at doing this bit, so I need a guy that can do this bit, and that's my go-to guy. And whenever there's an issue, you can put it down on them. And that's how we're sort of approaching Stile. Obviously, we've got our pieces that we do, but we've got a fantastic group of people that are helping us out doing the other stuff as well.
Awesome. So stick Stile into the app store of your choice, and you'll
Yeah,
find
it's
it.
available on Android and iTunes App
iOS,
Store. That's it.
Apple.
That's it. iOS and Android. You'd think I'd know that bit off heart, really, but
very good.
And that's
Well,
Stile, Stile, as in not a gate, not style as in clothes.
yes, Stile as in a gate, as in a crossing over a gate, and that was again the name kind of coming with the tagline of connecting the countryside, because we thought, Stile, connecting fields, connecting the countryside. It's just quite a nice. Yeah, it's quite a nice thing to go together.
Yeah.
And it's very, it's very early days for Stile, but we are hoping that it's a place where we're really trying to future proof the kind of space for the things we love, and seeing it sort of getting taken down left, right, and center on traditional platforms. I kind of feel like, yeah, do you know what? It gives people a space to share bits about their life that they might be, not so keen to do on the mainstream apps, and I'm hoping that it'll be a really useful place for people going forward.
Absolutely. So, Ian, the way we finish off these podcasts is a scenario that is the extinction level event asteroid is going to hit tomorrow. But your affairs are in order, your loved ones and enemies are reconciled, your dogs are fed, and your tomatoes have been watered. Your last day out in any form of shooting begins how?
So again, I think if it came to the end of the world, it would be, for me, there's two parts of it. There's the dream hunt, but if it came to the end of the world, I think I do think again it would be in a high seat. I just think I know it's a really boring answer, but having that calm at the end of the world, perhaps not a once in a lifetime hunt, but at that point, that's what I'd want to be doing.
I completely get that, but give us the dream hunt as well.
So for me, the dream hunt would be, I think one of the reasons I'm driven towards rifle shooting more. I mean, I do enjoy shotgun shooting. I do enjoy driven days, especially when the father-in-law's paying for them. But for me, I think the reason that draws me more into rifle shooting is I love to work for it. So something that involved mountains, horses, and a rifle would be the dream for me.
Wow.
That's something that I would love to do. And to be fair, I probably will aim to do at some point in my life. I mean, a friend of mine went shooting I think he went in Kazakhstan actually, and I can't remember what they were hunting. It might have been tar. But yeah, it was very much horseback up the mountain, camp, horseback on over again. And you're talking 3 or 4 days trekking for a shot. And to me, how much satisfaction you get per trigger pull is how much work you've put into it. So yeah, that to me is really what I value in my own shooting, is it's how much you've had to do to get there to pull that trigger.
So have you got a destination in mind for that, or?
Honestly, I don't know. I mean, even another friend of mine is a gunmaker in Austria, and he sends me pictures from time to time. And the mountainous terrain that they shoot, like chamois, is just absolutely breathtaking. And again, you're out, you're up, you're in the mountains. So that somewhere even there would be fantastic, I think.
Are you going with anyone?
Yeah. I'd want to take a guide, because I probably wouldn't know where to go. So, yeah, no, I mean, I think, hunting is hunting in general is always better in company. I used to do, before the kids came along, I used to do a yearly trip to Poland to shoot driven boar. Um, that was great, and a lot of that was half the shooting and half just the guys we went with. Just a fantastic trip. So yeah, taking a few people along for the ride, I think it's got to be part of it.
Lovely. Well, yeah, I think I completely get on board with you just wanting to be by yourself as the asteroid approaches. I think that would be quite a good way to go. So yeah,
Slightly different way of watching the sky light up.
yeah, you wouldn't know what time of day it was. Yes, but I think there's a lot to be said for that kind of adventure aspect. If it's a once in a lifetime thing, going in to do something in the middle of nowhere where you're like completely out of your comfort zone, and doing something completely new in an amazing landscape. That's
Yeah,
all
and
the
I think,
ingredients.
and like, hunting, for me, hunting in Africa would always be on the bucket list. But I think, cold mountains would be the one.
You don't want to be slogging up a mountain when it's really hot, do you?
Yeah,
Exactly.
this is true.
And I think I don't know why I get the feeling that the hotter the country, the thornier the bushes.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, I've not managed to get out yet, but the friends of mine that have been say, yeah, it's you've really got to be prepared for having your legs torn up.
Well, Ian, it's been great having you on. Thank you so much for joining us. It's been fun.
Yeah, Ian, thank you very much.
Thank you,
And
guys.
best of luck with both the businesses.
Thank you.
Right, so before we go, all that remains for me to say is there is a final reminder that you can get your hands on a pair of the very exclusive Guns on Pegs podcast shooting sock garters by sending us your shooting dilemmas for us to resolve, or by sending us your unpopular opinions, sharing your forgotten drives or your podcast suggestions, or any of the other things that we do from time to time. Just drop us an email to pod@gunsonpegs.com, and if we read it out in the next episode or any future episodes, we will send you some garters. Chris and I will be back in a month or so. I'll be back in 2 weeks' time with the other guys. But until then, thanks very much for listening, and goodbye.